You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. I'm Bill McIntyre here with Jon Gallo, bringing you news stories about Long Island and about Long Islanders. And now we're happy to introduce today's guests, Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor Joseph Saladino, who since 2017 has served as the chief elected official for the town's administrative branch, overseeing various important government services, preparing an initial annual town budget, to implementing and enforcing the town's council's legislation. And we also have with us Jeffrey Pravato, the town's receiver of taxes, who joined the Oyster Bay town government last year after serving 6 years as the Massapequa Park mayor. And he now manages an office that handles billing and collection of town and county property taxes for more than 300,000 Long Island residents. And again, we want to thank you both for joining us today. I know you guys are busy.
Definitely.
A pleasure.
So we do want to start, and we do look forward to talking about some of the great events I know that the town has sponsored, including a cleanup coming up this weekend. And I know there's some other important things, I believe, like a prescription drugs drop-off. I know that the town has sponsored. But now we do want to start with kind of a recounting of your own experiences of being in government and serving during such a difficult time during the pandemic.
We've been running government as a brand new administration since January 31st, 2017. And then 2 years ago, Jeff Pravato came on along with our newer members. So we really have a brand new slate of exciting candidates, including Michelle Johnson, Lewin Brodo, Tom Hand, Councilmember Laura Meyer, Vicky Walsh, and Steve Labriola, as well as our town clerk, Rich Lamarca. And as you have met, and I guess we're looking at the good-looking Jeff Pravato right now. Look at that head of hair. Oh, my gosh. I'm a little envious.
A face not good for radio.
It has been an exciting time. I worked in the New York State Assembly as a state assemblyman representing Long Island for 14 years. And I took the best practices back here to the town of Oyster Bay. So on affordability, which is important to people who own homes or someone who wants to rent or someone who wants to have a future on Long Island, quite frankly, cutting taxes. I'll say it again. Cutting taxes is critical. Taxes are way too expensive, and they add to a very expensive cost of living here on Long Island. So in the town of Oyster Bay, we cut taxes now. A total of $5.2 million are back in the checking accounts of our residents, our homeowners, not in town coffers. But we did so much more. When we came to the town of Oyster Bay, there was a $44 million deficit ongoing in our operating budget. Think of your home checking, your checkbook, where you owe $44 million, but you still have to keep writing checks to put gas in your tank, to keep the lights on in the house, to buy food and clothing and so forth. Well, in 3 short years, we went from the $44 million deficit to a $27 million surplus while cutting taxes. From $44 million to $27 million surplus. And that forced up the bond rating. 4 bond rating increases, including 2 during COVID. And that's really cool. So we have a great record, and we're continuing to move forward. That surplus, we have an independent financial audit, which comes out every June. So you'll see that in 2020, we will report the findings in June, and that surplus will be up to about $35 million. What does it do? It makes the town of Oyster Bay rock solid financially, and it shows that we've turned things around by reinventing every office. So it was going very well. We were making great changes in a positive way, and then COVID hits just a little over a year ago. We immediately put together a COVID team of very experienced people from first responders, firematics, from all the different fields on what to do to radically change government. We did, and we have had the lowest incidence of COVID of any municipality on Long Island. But what's specific? That's important. But then you look at the specifics. Never lost a day of collecting garbage, collecting our sort, recycling. I'm a big environmentalist. So is Jeff. Our whole team puts environmental sciences at a very high priority. Never missed a day of recycling, sanitation pickup, kept the building department open. Jeff Pravato and our friends at the Receiver of Taxes office, we created walk-up windows, Receiver of Taxes, town clerk, never stopped performing weddings. People could come up to the window, fill out the paperwork, get their marriage certificate, and get married. As a matter of fact, our town clerk, as he himself has been performing weddings outdoors. We have the walk-up windows for outdoor activities, whether you're handing in your materials needed for a building permit or your C of O. And this repeats itself department after department. We've really worked hard to design new ways. And then you get the quality of life pieces that we invented. Everybody knows about drive-in movies. And we had put out a plethora of great movies going all the way back to Star Wars, Jaws, all the fun stuff, and then more up-to-date movies, a lot of family movies. But we didn't stop there. We were the first town. Everybody has done drive-in movies. Some younger people, college students, I remember seeing them on the line in the cars coming in. They were going out on a date. It was their first drive-in movie ever. How exciting. Fun stuff. So we reached out to restaurants to provide bags of chips and popcorn to give out free to the people at the drive-in movies. It worked out so well, we created drive-in concerts. First time the concept had ever been done on Long Island. The drive-in concerts were all the favorite bands like Big Shot, including Mike Del Giudice, who sings in Billy Joel's band, to the Lords of 52nd Street, who are the original members of Billy Joel's band, to country music, to Southern rock, to Motown, all kinds of great music. We didn't stop. If anything, we added more shows because we realized our residents needed this free entertainment. We created all kinds of safety nets in our parks and beaches to keep all of them open. And then we offered to schools to have graduation. It looked like some high schools were not going to be able to have graduation because of the pandemic. We gave them the ability to do that at Tobay Beach free of charge so they could have drive-in graduations. The list goes on and on. I don't want to put anybody to sleep, but Jeff, I just hit a number of these issues. What else did we do that come to mind?
You did so much stuff, Supervisor. Like you said, first of all, thank you for having me on here, guys. And, a little background on me is I first became an elected official in Massapequa Park in 2002 as a trustee, became deputy mayor in 2008, and then mayor in 2013. But again, the same principles as the supervisor has here. When I was mayor, we never raised taxes. I also got New York Rising grants that are finally getting done to help with flooding in Massapequa Park. And Mayor Pearl has taken the reins on that. Now is doing an outstanding job over there. He's keeping the village a great place to live for all of us. But, the supervisor touched on something. When we first came in, as receiver of taxes, the buck stops with me. When if there's a problem with billing or anything like that, the buck stops here. It'd be my problem. So what's happening is with the reassessment that's happened, Nassau County has done a horrible job in the assessment office. You can't blame the workers. You have to blame it from the top. But, so I don't determine the amount of taxes that an individual pays, nor I don't assess their property values either. And I went in front of the legislature and I said that. I repeated it twice. I said, I don't determine the taxes the individual pays, and I don't assess your properties. What is the assessment office doing and the county executive's office doing? They're blaming the receivers, the Town of Oyster Bay and the Town of Hempstead, for the errors. When I tell you, I'll send you this sheet, 6,000, well, it's going to be more than that. We got 6,673 that have been processed already of errors between Class 1 reassessments not being in, clergy, veterans, exemptions. You have veterans.
Important stuff.
For veterans. You got combat veterans, wounded combat veterans that saw action. They have senior exemptions who would pay school taxes. Sometimes you look at it, it's $800 and something a year. they were getting taxed at the full boat of, maybe $7,000-8,000 a year. They can't do that. They can't buy their medication. They can't put the food on the table, pay their rent, pay their mortgages. And we have people crying to us. And unfortunately, we can guide them the best way we can to the assessment office, but the assessors don't answer the phones.
Yeah, right.
And,
you get the heat because you collect the tax.
Disservice when you can't get anybody on the phone over there. And I don't know if Bill, maybe you've heard the same kind of stories. The assessment office. It's horrible.
With a lot of agencies, unfortunately.
And during a pandemic, it's during a pandemic now that's happening. So
of course, so that's an important point to make in terms of knowing that, and of course, we'll have more time to talk about the assessment, and obviously, you're both strong opinions on the issues with it. We did talk to Newsday Scott Eidler recently, and he was kind of going through the very dense kind of complexities of it, and he kind of admitted to himself that it's tough to explain because it's a kind of opaque and not exactly very clear to even a reporter, let alone the average taxpayer kind of process. So certainly, I think everyone's in favor of more, kind of accountability and more just having, again, just the sunlight cast on it so people understand exactly what they're paying for. And of course, the issues with those veterans and elderly and clergy exemptions are certainly an important point of that, like you said, during a pandemic. So I guess, knowing that, and you did touch Supervisor Saladino on a lot of the positives that came out of the pandemic. And I know obviously you've been fighting for restaurants and small businesses and other things, which we can touch on now. But, I did want to acknowledge this too, because we have spoken to Kate Murray at the Town of Hempstead and the Supervisor Clavin. And knowing that how many difficult situations that people might take for granted during the pandemic that they didn't expect, like the town clerks having to deal with death certificates and the backlogs and having to deal with all the public health and all these other, really, really kind of dark, difficult aspects of government. But then seeing that people, like you said, needed that kind of outlet. They needed the movies. They needed a place to kind of feel safe and feel like something was normal. So certainly, we applaud all those efforts, of course.
It was a very tough time. I remember day after day being on the phone for hours, helping people who, for instance, have own funeral homes and what to do with all those bodies as they started building up. In Italy, for instance, one of the worst hit places with the pandemic, they were using ice rinks as morgues.
Yeah,
so we knew we were not going to get to that situation. That would have been horrific. So we stayed on the phone and we worked out getting assistance for refrigerated trucks at hospitals and funeral homes and so forth. It was a very, very difficult time. But on a positive note, we helped restaurants get open. We held Zooms with all of the mayors and continue to do that. In this case, it was weekly Zooms to give the information, to interpret all of the very complicated rules coming out of Albany. How could restaurants get open? Well, we got the idea. We got together with the mayors of the villages, our elected officials, community groups, restaurant owners, and we lobbied Albany to allow outdoor dining and drinking, for that matter. I know we have college students who watch this, 21 and over.
Of course.
But getting back to some sort of normalcy, and we were successful. We got those bars and restaurants opened earlier for outdoor dining. We lifted all the fees on permits for this new dining. And people will say, well, that's not fair, making them get a permit. Here they're struggling. Well, when you split a parking lot, again, a lot of our job is about common sense. You split a parking lot. There are people sitting on chairs at tables in the same parking lot where folks are backing out of their spots. You have to come up with safety methods to keep people from accidentally backing into a table of patrons. Definitely. So we did that, and we worked this very quickly and simply and made sure there were no fees involved. We allowed restaurants to extend these permits out for year after year now, so that when they buy the equipment, the heaters and the tents, they know they'll be able to keep using those. These were small ways, but filling the void for information was critical. We set up a testing center in Hicksville for town employees and their families. And then we had village employees and their families be able to use this too. It was all free. Anybody with health insurance would be charged through their health insurance with no copays at all. Then the fire departments and water districts and other municipalities we helped a few school districts who were having trouble with the regulations. So we put together this team of experts, our COVID response team with attorneys and all the different people, building department experts, through Zooms and conference calls, just helped people to get back on their feet. And God knows we saved countless businesses from folding. On the fun notes, we talked about recreation. How do you get people through the tunnels at Tow Bay carefully? So we set up ropes and barriers. You stay to the right. Simple things like that, but never closing the parks, never closing the boat ramps, never closing hiking trails and different places where people knew you just had to let them get out. We were not going to do that. We work for the public. That's really what it boils down to, whether it's Jeff Pravato and the receiver's office, my administration, all our offices. We work for the public, and we're very proud to now be the leaders on Long Island, to go from where the town was years ago. We're also a big town. People don't realize we're the third largest town in all of America. We go from the North Shore and the Long Island Sound to the South Shore and the Atlantic Ocean. We are promoting the Town of Oyster Bay experience because we have so many historic sites. People remember the television show Turn. You remember the show Turn about the spies in Revolutionary War times? I guess it wasn't that popular. A lot of that activity took place in the town of Oyster Bay. George Washington's Secret Six, the spy ring that helped to win the American Revolution, was based in the community of Oyster Bay. Wow. We have Co-Mansion, which is Planting Fields Arboretum. Right. Oh, yeah, whether you're older like me and you want to have a romantic picnic lunch, or you're two lovers in the college age that want to have some time alone and smell the flowers, Planting Field Arboretum is phenomenal. It's such a romantic and wonderful place. In a short distance that you could ride a bike from there, on the other side, the east side of Oyster Bay, we have President Roosevelt's home, Sagamore Hill. He was the most famous, some would say Billy Joel, but he was the most famous resident of Oyster Bay. And arguably, Billy Joel is a great contender for most famous.
He's got his motorcycle shop right across from my building.
Motorcycle shop, exactly.
You see him all the time.
Definitely community presence.
My secretary loves him. Billy Joel's outside. Everybody goes running out.
For lunch hour. But that's life in the town of Oyster Bay. You have communities of wealth up on the North Shore. You have that regular town of Bayville with great beaches, great summer sports, nice restaurants. You have Hicksville, which is the most diversified community in all of Long Island. We're very proud of that. So many new Americans coming from India and China and all over the world to make Hicksville home. So what does that mean?
Definitely.
That's a blend of cultures. That's great restaurants, great shops, great places to shop, from everything from a wedding to just wonderful food shops and specialty shops. Things you can't get anywhere else, or maybe in Manhattan, but a close ride away. So and then you have down into the South Shore communities. You have Bethpage Golf Course, one of the best golf courses in the country is in the town of Oyster Bay. Our own golf course in Woodbury is exceptional, and there's a wonderful facility there for weddings and special events, the mansion. This repeats itself all over. Example that leads me to on the finances and the new town of Oyster Bay. You asked how are we making the town different. Well, there were issues in the past with the concessionaires. We went to the public. We had a brand new way of vetting out who would the concessionaires be. It's all separate experts doing a great job at Tow Bay, doing a great job at Tappan Beach. Cool restaurants, great places to get more fast food in the way of pizza or snacks. And they're all new. They're doing a great job. The residents are receiving 5 times the income that they were getting previously. Wow. So we're making the experience much better. We're talking about the historic trips and the staycations people can take in the town of Oyster Bay. The beaches, the facilities, the golf, the ice rinks, year-round ice rinks. it doesn't end there, but it's a real exciting time in our
It certainly is.
Well, anyway, let me interject here that so for the listening audience, that you're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College, and we are here with Joseph Saladino and Jeff Pravato, Oyster Bay Town bigwigs.
Supervisor.
We went right to the top.
Supervisor Saladino. We certainly can see, I don't know if the listeners can pick it up. I think they can, just your enthusiasm and obviously love for the town of Oyster Bay and all of its great attractions and places that people can spend.
I've lived here my entire life. Mm-hmm. Jeff has lived here his entire life. But I will give you a little inside scoop.
Here we go. Here's some news.
Always love that, of course.
Enthusiasm you're saying, I'm a musician. And there is a way a musician conveys their love for others through a exciting and passion that I have. And that same passion I have for playing live music is the passion that we have for running this town. And I know from young people, college-age students, we all love our live music. I see everybody with iPods, earbuds.
What instrument do you play? What instrument do you play?
Take a guess. I'll give you a hint. People march to this.
Oh, you're a drummer.
Are you a drummer?
I'm a drummer. I have a band.
I think that was enough.
Including some of my high school friends, including guys who went on. The original drummer from the Stray Cats is one of the true drummers in our band. Professional.
We have a lot to talk about.
Players.
We have a lot to talk about. I've played drums for over 50 years.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have played in every kind of music. I now play, strangely enough, in a punk band, and my daughter is the lead singer. And we've been together in a punk band.
And it's no small time act.
It's all original.
What is the name of this punk band?
Bad Mary is the name of the punk band.
Bad Mary.
We toured Japan last year.
Very cool. Very cool.
A Foo Fighters
I'm having
video,
a ball,
and Bill, which is a nice
you just zeroed right in on me. I can I know right where you're at.
That's his wheelhouse, of course.
And you're right. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Isn't it?
It's keeping me young.
Great experience to look in the crowd, to see the joy on people's faces.
Yeah.
So that's the passion we bring to running the town of Oyster Bay. The joy in someone's faces when we install a new children's swings and recreation equipment, to see them enjoying it as a family, to see a kid learn to swim for the first time or catch their first fish or launch the family out on their boat for a safe afternoon. Or as we're doing this weekend, we're doing a cleanup in Oyster Bay Harbor. We encourage everyone to come out and help us out tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, 10 a.m.
We're
doing a Shed the Meds program, which is so important. Everyone understands the importance of protecting people from opioid abuse and overdose.
Amen.
We're doing that most of the day at Marjorie Post Park in Massapequa on Merrick Road.
Yeah.
We're dedicating a street in the name of a fallen hero. We've done so many programs to showcase exceptional women, business owners, and women in civic groups and women who have been promoting all the right causes because that sends a great message for young people, young men and women, to follow in their example.
Definitely.
But the passion to see the town the best it's ever been. We've paved some 300 roads already, and we have a plan to keep that going. We're protecting our infrastructure. We replaced our fields as they wear out, those synthetic turf fields that are on par with NCAA Division I. So the experience in Oyster Bay, cutting the taxes and making the experience the best that's ever been. That's our passion. That's what we've been doing. And I'm very, very happy to accomplish this. And because we're marching to the beat of the same drum.
There you go.
Let me interject. I mean, I've been here a year and a half now, and just seeing what the supervisor's team has done, thinking out of the box, getting the debt under control, paving the roads, doing everything that, what's right for the people. We're all about the people here in Oyster Bay. We've listened to them and we try to help them the best way we can. And the team that the supervisor has built around him, his inner circle team, which is an outstanding team who thinks out of the box, and just knows how to get things done, from our engineering department, our highway department, every department, parks, you don't want to leave anybody out. A sanitation department, like the supervisor said, didn't miss a beat, where other towns, when that pandemic first started, didn't pick up garbage. This town did that. And they found ways to do that, which was, have not everybody meeting in one room. Driver picks up the truck, you pick up your crew on the route, just doing stuff like that.
No, that's
building,
point.
We needed a way to collect taxes from the people that wanted to come up. So I was like, let's put some walk-up windows in. We got that done. Then the town clerk put the walk-up windows in. P&D, drop-off. This is just a group that's at the Town of Oyster Bay that cares about the people, cares about this town, wants to see it move forward into the 21st century. And Supervisor Saladino and the whole team has brought this town into the 21st century, just the way we think, technology-wise, and, being smart. I always say, thinking smart about the money, how we spend it, and it's always team. The supervisor loves my team. Together, everybody achieves more. And that's what we do collectively as a team in this town. We good acronym. Collectively think together and come up with the right ideas.
Yeah.
And listen, something's not right, it's not right. And if something's good, we go with it.
Yeah, no, that makes
sense. Jeff, you hit the nail right on the head. That's been our mantra, team. And that was Jeff brought that to us. Together, everyone achieves more, team. But let me give you one specific example that everyone can relate to about how to do things better. Everyone loves Tobay Beach, one of the most popular beaches in the entire state of New York. It's gorgeous. It's one of the big jewels the residents own. Well, a big storm came along and wiped out all of the sand. If you go to the beach at low tide, you look out on the water, the waves are breaking, there's a big sandbar out there. That was our beach. And it's right there. It's within distance. You could see it. You could swim out to this sandbar. So I said, well, we got to get a beach back. We got to do it right away because our residents are not going to miss a summer at the beach. So we called companies and we found out what it costs to dredge that sand and put it back on the beach. It costs $7 million. Holy smokes.
That's a lot of sand.
I heard that and I said, what? What are we going to do? So we put our best people together and we came up with a solution. We had meetings with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a United States office, and the Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, which is a New York State office. And we got something called a scraping permit. Doesn't sound too sexy, but we have 3.5 miles of beachfront at Tobay. We only use 1.5 miles of that, where the concessions are, where the tunnels are, where the residents put their blankets down.
Okay.
So we scraped sand from the far ends and brought it to the center. Didn't have to pay the $7 million. Had plenty of sand. And if you go to Tobay today, and I say my prayers, but because storms are one of the realities, you can't control it, just like you can't control COVID. But how you respond to it is where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
We restored our beach. We saved an enormous amount of money. And now the beach is all ready to be enjoyed for another summer. And by changing out the concessions, we've got great restaurants, live music, all of these great experiences. This is what we're about. This is the model that we continue, the 5-star hotel that we're running, and our residents are the guests at that 5-star hotel.
And supervisor, all that work at Tobay was done in-house. Didn't have to pay to have some outside contractors come in.
That's a great thing.
Saving money that way. That's what I mean. They work to save money. We talk to our crews and what can be done. The streets that we were able to pave in-house versus having an outside contractor.
Of course.
It's just a collective mind that works here that gets the job done at the right price and done correctly. And for our residents.
I'm curious for you guys talking about like the maintenance department, doing the roads and things. I mean, obviously, we've heard a lot of complaints about, the potholes that are on the roads now. And one of the issues, people don't know if they're driving on a state road or a county road or a town road. So they don't know who to complain to, are you guys going to, is it going to be a financial hit to do a lot of these pothole?
So let's talk about the cost, because that's really what it comes to. When I took over as town supervisor in 2017, there was this, I talked about this deficit in the operating budget, but you have two budgets that you manage. The operating budget, putting gas in the tanks of the trucks, the payroll and keeping the lights on. And then you have the capital budget. That's investing in the infrastructure. It costs $1 million per mile to pave the roads.
Wow.
$1 million per mile. And it can be even more than that if there's an extensive drainage project that has to be done to alleviate a big drainage problem on that road.
Okay.
So we have about 700 miles of road. If we paved all of our roads in 1 year, you couldn't find enough companies who do paving to come in to do 700 miles. But it would cost in excess of $700 million, and the bond rating would crash through the floor. So I often go to events and people complain, why isn't my road done? Well, it is going to get done. What we did, we listened to the public. We created a rating system for the first time. So the worst roads get done first. But we did something else for fairness. Instead of saying the worst roads across the whole town, we rated community by community. So Hicksville and Bethpage get an even amount of money. So Massapequa and Locust Valley get an even amount of money. So it's distributed evenly, and we've budgeted for every single year to do these projects. So far, we've done 300 roads, and we're going to continue to do that. Having said that, I'm proud that each year, through managing the finances properly, because you have to do both, we have made sure that we have paved an enormous amount of roads, especially as compared to in the past. But each year we pay down more debt than we take on. That's an important factor.
That's a good sign. Yeah.
That's a very good sign. We reduced the debt greatly. We've eliminated the deficit. We now have an enormous surplus. Our bond rating has gone up 4 times, and I hope you'll have Jeff and I back on the show this summer, because you're going to see more bond rating increases as we approach the AAA level.
That's what we all like to hear.
We're getting a lot done. Now, if the road outside your house hasn't been done yet, we understand people are frazzled about that. But we're getting to it. We will get these roads, all the roads paved in the town. We have a plan to do that and to work fairly where the worst road gets done.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those jobs. That's one of those jobs that's like painting a battleship, right? You start at the front, you paint, you get to the end, and then you go back to the front again and start
like painting a bridge.
Exactly, right? I mean, so you get done paving all the roads, and then the next morning the guy says, okay, we're going to do it again.
What's interesting is people will say, you didn't have a lot of snow this year. How come the roads are so bad? A lot of it has to do with the cold temperatures. Asphalt and concrete absorb water, believe it or not.
Freezing,
and then it freezes and expands. This is for you science majors in college. That water freezes and expands and then pops potholes, makes cracks, and does that devastation. But we're on top of it. Our plan is working. We've got over 300 roads paved. And even though it's $1 million a mile, we're getting it done. For our roads.
That's great.
Bill, I think you asked before how do you identify some of them. So the numbered roads, it's like 27, like 106, 107. Those are all state roads when you see a numbered road. Anything in front of your house on your street is a town road if you don't live in a village. And a lot of times the main roads, like Old Country Road, those are county roads. But that's where it gets a little dicey. People complain about it. It's not ours. It's theirs.
No, exactly. People get very confused. This is the road that I'm concerned about. They don't care who owns it, whose responsibility. They just want to take care of.
They want it to get done. They could care less who owns it.
Exactly. I work in constituent services, and I know certainly those types of issues with the DOT and the city and other agencies. And like you said, it's a matter of you're the face, and they're the ones that they're calling.
Well,
but let me just remind our listeners that they are listening to this week's Long Island News here on 90.3 WHPC. And Bill McIntyre and myself, Jon Gallo, are happy to still be joined here by Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor Joe Saladino and Town of Oyster Bay, the Receiver of Tax, Jeff Pravato. So, okay, and we definitely touch a lot of important issues that we wanted to cover anyway in this discussion there. But since we're kind of talking about roads and we're talking about funding, and it's great to see that we've managed the town to have a lot of these great services still be rendered, but not having to raise taxes, which is always kind of that kind of give and pull for most governments. But I did want to discuss and have your both opinions on the funding from both the state through the budget and through the federal stimulus package on how that's going to be helpful. Because I know we talked to Town Supervisor Clavin and Executive Curran and all the other elected officials who, we're happy to see that thankfully that money is going to be coming to Long Island to help with a lot of different programs, including helping fund the arts, recover, and restaurants and other stuff. So I guess Supervisor Saladino first, if you want to give us your thoughts on why that's going to make a big impact.
So there have been 2 stimulus packages that have been voted through and provided from Washington, D.C.
Yep.
The way the first one was set up, it was delivered to municipalities over a certain size. And for New York State, that meant all of our counties and one town, because the only town that I know of in America that has more than 500,000 people is the town of Hempstead.
Hempstead, exactly.
So they received the money directly, but the towns did not. The trickle effect, if you will, is that the counties get the money. They come up with the ways in which they want to use it, and then they also deliver money to the towns and the villages. Unfortunately, and I would rather not get into a discussion of why, because we can only guess what's on our mind, Nassau County did not give the town of Oyster Bay so much as $1. But that being said, we still did our job without raising taxes while helping all the restaurants and the stores stay open. And we did our job to continue to pave the roads, the services that we've been speaking about, whether it's never missing a day of sanitation pickup to all the drive-in concerts, all the fun and all the programs that we did, paving projects and so forth. So now we get another stimulus package from Washington, D.C., and we're awaiting our first dollars, which we still haven't received. But we're told we will be getting that money, and it will be a help. And there's many projects we can further through this process.
Go
ahead.
Is that money straight to you from the federal government?
They have not told us yet. The U.S. Department of Treasury is coming up with the formula of how the money will be distributed. We will be distributing parts of the money that we receive to the villages because that's part of the law, and we would do it that anyway. Mm-hmm. And that is through a process that is a population-based formula. So the United States Department of Treasury comes up with the formula, which is population-based. Whatever the money is for each village, we give to them. We'll be helping out not-for-profits, but also, to continue the government programs, the government programs. And there have been reimbursements that we're working on in terms of COVID, where we put up the plastic shields and at the counters to protect people. The purchase of PPE was very important. We went out and we got great prices on masks when many people couldn't even get masks. Yeah. We were stockpiling those masks at a very low price, and I'm very proud of our team because I save every nickel. It's really important to get those. Then we distributed them to our senior citizens, distributed them to villages, to other organizations. So this is a continuation of the things we've been doing that are COVID related. We'll be spending that money to also enhance our workforce development program, to train people to how to get back to work, resume writing, computer skills, management skills, whatever it might be, to help residents who have been displaced to get back to work. That's a very highly successful program. And we have trained an enormous amount of people and helped them with those services. These are just some of the many, many ways, but we're also doing things to permanently fix the town, right? You have issues that are immediately related to COVID, but then permanent fixes. We learned from COVID and we have best practices. We spoke of Jeff Pravato, the receiver's office, walk-up windows, how to design those windows. So when you need to visit the town clerk, get a building permit, pay your taxes, whatever it might be, you can do it through the safety of the walk-up windows. That's one small example. There are many, many ways. And then the other piece to it is to continue the path to financial stability. Young people in college want to get a job, find a place to live on Long Island, and stay close to their family. We know people whose adult children have left for the Carolinas, Florida, wherever it might be, it's primarily because of cost.
Yep.
So a part of our priorities is to continue to manage things in a way so that people will be able to afford it. This pandemic forced so many towns to raise taxes, not in the town of Oyster Bay. No tax increase, and we're continuing on that path. We're very proud of it. So it's better services, a better experience, streamlining services, making them safer, and all of these ways, obviously they all cost some money, but they're all designed to help further our town, keep the businesses open, and make the services the best they've ever been, and not raise taxes, keep it affordable. So that's been our mantra. That's our strategies in general from the macro sense. We used to use the expression from 30,000 feet looking at this problem. Yep. This is how we want to solve it. But then there's all the minutia of the specific programs. Yes, we're going to continue to do drive-in concerts, and we have a big name band that everybody's going to flip when they hear who's coming to the town of Oyster Bay to perform a free concert for our residents.
Yeah, that's great. That's certainly great. We look forward to more of those announcements going on the line. But Jeff, I imagine, does that not put a little bit of stress on you, knowing like we have to get all these things, like you said, paid for, and we want to have all these great services, but like you said, making sure that you really work the numbers and see, how you can get creative and find, like you said, maybe those revenue streams that, were there that weren't utilized and stuff like that. So do you want to talk a little bit more again, I guess, about, how you've, navigated having to deal with these budget complexities?
Yeah. Listen, like when I came into the office, we went through our budget line by line. And, there's things that we didn't need them. There was things that were in those budget lines for years and I had them taken out. We work with a tight budget. When we need something, we go to the supervisor's office. I come in with a plan. I don't say supervisor, deputy supervisor, I want this. What is your premise for that? What do you need? How is that going to make your office work better? And I come with a plan written out. We come and present our plan to get done, like with the walk-up windows. We had to get canopies, we had to get glass redone, put stations at the windows, and we presented a plan for that. And we did that. And then with our Town Hall South. So what happens is we have Town Hall North and Town Hall South. Town Hall South receiver's office used to be just drop off a check and you stub, and then everything would get sent up north and run through the machines like a bank when you go to the bank when you deposit checks and everything.
All right. Yep.
What we noticed was we started keeping numbers of everything. Walk up, how many people walking up? We figured Town Hall South, there was 1.5 times more people that came down here to personally pay their bills versus up north. So I said, if you want to pay by credit card or cash, why should someone from Massapequa or Bethpage we have today to do that? They can do that right here now at Town Hall South. Right now, we're not taking cash or credit card due to the pandemic, but they can walk up with their check and their stub and pay right here and immediately get a receipt. And it's immediately done in the system. There's no chance for any kind of errors. If when you have to move stuff from point A to point B, there's chances that things could go wrong. And it's worked out really well. We presented our plan to the supervisor. He loved it. And it worked out well. The people are loving it down here now that they don't have to travel all the way up north. Yeah, and you look at the way the supervisor has worked this past year with the pandemic. Like you said, not getting a dime from the county or anything like that. We've worked within our means, right? And we've got the surplus that he's built up because that's what we've done. They've had the retirement incentives and everything that they've done, but they've done it with great, proper budgeting. And they've done it the right way. And that's why we were prepared. When they say the rainy day fund, it doesn't get any rainier than COVID. And they've done that. And the COVID team, developing the testing centers for your families, for for your workers and everything. And what they have done to keep our employees safe has been phenomenal. I know people from other towns that their husbands or wives work at, they are not doing anything compared to what the town of Oyster Bay has done. And I tell you, once this is all and done, I can see the supervisor getting some kind of award from somewhere because of what he's done to keep our employees safe.
Jeff mentioned an award, and we did just recently win an award that we're very proud of. We have Allen Park in Farmingdale, and over the years, the town made promises because the community needed more in the way of fields and parking and bathrooms and so forth. So we built an extension on Allen Park, which used to be polluted property, and we did a big environmental cleanup. We cleaned up that property, and now we built one of the most beautiful park extensions with 3 baseball fields, a 60-footer, a 90-footer, obviously, depending on the age of the players, and then a small field that is for toddlers who are playing t-ball, but it's also used for disabled residents.
Great.
And that is heartwarming to see kids in walkers and wheelchairs and so forth using this field, feeling normal, playing baseball like the rest of the kids in the class do. And that filled our heart with pride. There's also an all-purpose field, which means football, soccer, and lacrosse, new bathrooms, new parking, all of that there. And I think we received a national award, an engineering award, for the way we developed that property, but also about taking property that was polluted, doing a major environmental cleanup to the highest standard. It's called residential standard and recreational standard, and then building this park. There's other sites and issues that we've targeted for the same thing. The biggest is, and perhaps the most famous, is the Grumman Navy plume.
Plume,
my entire career as a New York State Assemblyman, I passed legislation and worked to further the remediation and worked with the outstanding water districts and the engineers and the state DEC, everyone involved. And now we're getting Grumman and the U.S. Navy to pay for the cleanup.
Finally.
So taxpayers don't have to pay for
that's
it. That was the
deal.
critical piece.
You know,
and we've built a lot of momentum. There's a plan in place now, and they've already begun building the infrastructure to clean up the Grumman Navy plume. As a matter of fact, last night, I was taking a walk out in Bethpage, and we walked at one of the sites, which will have the piping and the pump stations to draw that water out, take it to a cleaning facility that equates to the old charcoal filter you had on the side of your fish tank. Draw the water out, run it through things like activated charcoal and ultraviolet light to kill the contaminants and remove the contaminants, and then pump it back into the aquifer after it's clean to recharge the aquifer system. We have a very unique system of drinking water, which is unlike anywhere else in the United States. And
I don't think people are aware that there are only 13 wastewater stations in the whole eastern seaboard taking care of all that wastewater. I think that's one of the issues we have when someone wants to put up a 500 unit building, is that nobody looks underground to see, okay, you just added 500 families to the existing infrastructure. Can it handle it? But I want to make a left-hand turn here.
We do environmental reviews every time there's an application, and we look at just those things.
That's
very necessary.
Water, drinking water capacity, traffic flow. So we're on it. And these are, I love this kind of thing.
And definitely
I'm a bit of a science nut myself.
I want to make a left-hand turn now because we have a new law in New York, and they've legalized recreational marijuana now, and I want to know how the town of Oyster Bay is going to field this new,
reality.
Long hit out to the midfield.
So I want to make it clear that was the decision made in Albany. It has nothing to do, pro or con, has nothing to do with the town of Oyster Bay. We play no role in that decision. That's your.
We understand that. There have been towns.
Not everybody realizes that.
No, that's fair.
The town of Hempstead and some other municipalities had previously opted out even before the law got passed, and that there would be no sale of recreational marijuana.
Okay, so let's be clear on the facts, because there's a lot of misconceptions. When a municipality opts out, it doesn't mean that now marijuana is illegal. That's not the way New York State or Albany wrote the law.
Exactly.
It is specifically for the sales.
Yep.
So what we did prior to the law passing and realizing that no matter where someone is on the political spectrum, nobody wants the sale of drugs outside of a school or house of worship. So we set up a new law that was very reasonable. We listened to the public. We held a hearing, and we listened to everyone, people who were for marijuana, people against, people who had had bad experiences. But what we ended up doing is common sense, something everyone can agree with. So what we did is we passed a law that said you cannot have these distribution facilities,
recreational, like you said,
or recreation, and these facilities that sell marijuana. They have to be at least 1,000 feet from a residential neighborhood, 1,000 feet from a school, a playground, a house of worship, a library.
Right.
We said that they can only open these in light industrial zones. So you can't open it in the downtown of your community. You can't open it in a residential area. You can't open it in the commercial strip stores. It has to be in the light industrial areas. And every community has light industrial areas. So
does this law apply to new facilities, or what about the existing ones?
I don't believe that there are any dispensaries currently in the town of Oyster Bay.
I think medical dispensaries, no matter where they are, were probably prone to the same restrictions. They didn't want even a medical dispensary near a school. They didn't, only because of the idea that it may eventually become legal, and that dispensary would then become in the business of selling recreational marijuana.
They called that the backdoor method. They'd open a medical dispensary, and then when it became legal, turn it into a recreational dispensary. But again, we focused on what the public asked for, and that's the common sense approach. So that is limiting this to only in these light industrial zones, keeping it 1,000 feet or more from a neighborhood and a church, a school, a playground, library, so forth, a house of worship. And the third piece is that they would have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. People would say, well, why all that? Why Zoning Board of Appeals? Because that gives the ability for the public to be heard, but also to set up restrictions. That's the law, how restrictions happen. So if they want certain hours of operation, they don't want it to be all night, the Zoning Board of Appeals can set a time for restrictions. They can set other safety factors. This even applies in the public has to be heard. That's the American way.
Yeah.
In the town, not every municipality does what we do on public hearings, and that's sad. But we focus on the public hearings, making sure the public is heard, and then taking a common sense approach. So we put this new law in place, and now we are, I meet with the other supervisors through Zooms, and we are continuing to have conversations. We have something set up with the governor's office so we can hear about how the law works, how this new office of, it's a very high office.
Oversight.
Of oversight.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
But the town,
of course, I hear you.
But the town does.
It's an office to set up the rules and the regulations.
Okay, and just real quick, I just wanted to ask, because we do have only a few moments still here left with you guys, and obviously we're grateful for the time, but we were reading in Newsday, does that also already apply to vape shops? I think there was some confusion around the restrictions.
There's a lot of confusion. So new vape shops that sell these products and marijuana-related products, our law of where they can open, it does apply. But it doesn't apply to the 7-Eleven. It doesn't apply to the shops that have a small portion of their revenue based on selling certain equipment.
Versus
so we're taking an approach that is the approach that those in the addiction services told us is common sense. We're protecting school children. We're protecting communities. And we're continuing to meet with the other supervisors and the government experts to figure out the best approach.
Right. And this could also have major tax benefits for the town too, depending on. That's why,
you know, we're focused on doing such a careful and good job with taxes that we're not going to look to vices as a way to balance our budget. We're already balancing our budget and then some. And if folks didn't tune in the beginning, we have turned around the finances tremendously in our town. So all through COVID, we did not raise taxes, and we're doing better and better financially every day. And we're going to continue on that path and not look to raise money on vices. But we also are very conscious of people's needs on medical uses the important things. I've had so many friends suffer from and some die from cancer. So we certainly have a heart as well. And it's this balanced approach of listening to the experts and listening to the public. We're going to listen to the college student and we're going to listen to the senior citizen and everyone in between.
Exactly. Yeah. And then just real quick, Bill, this is for Jeff. Just in terms of the tax stream, and I know, like you said, there's been discussion because obviously also legalized sports gambling is a thing that passed in this year's session and budget. But in terms of the marijuana legislation, I know there seems, like you said, to be some flexibility in terms of where it could be sold and those types of restrictions to zoning. But in terms of tax revenue, even if you did decide we don't want to have any of these facilities in our area, does that stop you from getting any of the revenue? I know, like you said, it's not a main focus, but I think people are still confused on what happens if you decide that.
So from what I understand, even the dispensaries, you're not able, I don't think they're able to deposit these things in banks, the money they make, because federally it's still illegal. But I mean, my office collects the property taxes and everything from the businesses. So we send out the bills. County sends
Are you prepared to take cash?
We do take cash. We do take cash.
Because if this did come to fruition, you may have to. Yeah. Suitcases full, hopefully.
If I may, I don't think that towns would see enormous amounts of revenue. My instinct on this is set up to provide New York State revenue.
For the state, right.
For the state.
It looks like the tax
really
split
focused on giving huge amounts of revenue for the towns, and that shouldn't be part of our decision making. It's about listening to our residents of all ages, listening to them, and coming up with a safe approach. By the way, so people know, if you opt out, you could always opt in at another point, a year, 3, 5 years down the road. It's not a once and you're done kind of thing.
Right, that's good. Well,
there's a lot of noise out there, but like you said, at the core, it's a public health concern and a safety concern and everything else. And I know we talked about that with Commissioner Ryder last week from NCPD. And like I said, we appreciate your time, and certainly we'll promote those events that you mentioned previously coming up this weekend, important things around substance abuse and the drop-off for narcotics and opioids, but also for getting out in the environment. It's a great way to spend time, with your community, cleaning up and making, the community better. And great to hear about what's happening with the Grumman Plume in terms of making progress and everything else. So thank you guys, of course, for your time and for that.
As I usually do at the end of a show like this, I have to ask you both to promise to come back sometime, because we still have a million questions and things we could get into. I know if we sat down at the local diner someplace with a cup of coffee, we'd be talking for 5 or 6 hours. So it's very difficult to get all of those issues into the.
Of course, but we will come back, and I'd love to talk music with you too.
Well, we're going to do that too. Exactly. We're going to do that too. You're going to see me in the audience this summer, someplace where I'll find out where Joe Saladino's playing his drums, and
maybe
I'll be there.
A joint drumming session. There you go.
Looking
forward to that. Yeah. Certainly, we share your passion for the town.
We really want to thank you.
Yeah,
I want to thank you both for spending the time with us. And again,
it's a great day in the town of Oyster Bay. We thank you, Bill McIntyre. We thank you, Jon Gallo, and of course, Sean and everyone at Nassau Community College. This is a great station, a great way to learn and be brought up to date on all the topics that are important to you, the listeners. So we're happy to be here. We'll be back real soon. And remember, you want to have a great time, a wonderful experience. Come visit the town of Oyster Bay.
There you go,
guys. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, both.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm Bill McIntyre here with Jon Gallo, and we want to thank you. We'll see you next time right here, same time, same place on 90.3 WHPC.